Good morning. My name is Angela Easterwood, and I'm your executive member for the Black Employee Council for the Bosman Building. Our executive members are your point of contact, and we manage making sure you are notified regarding activities and events. You can also contact us if you have ideas that would help us be more proactive as an organization, as well as share your concerns. Each location has 2 executive members, and my partner at Bosman is Joanna Coles. Joanna, it's all yours.
Thank you, Angela, and good morning. I'm proud to be with working with my colleague and my sister, Angela, as representing the BEC, or the Black Employees Council, at the Bosman Building. I'm also the proud mom of the individual who will be singing the National Black Anthem, my son, Julian Coles. Julian is by degree from UVA, is an engineer, but his passion is music and his artistry. I know you'll enjoy his performance as much as we do.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as storm sea. Sing a song.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Morel White, and I am the president of the Black Employees Council. And welcome to the 2021 Black History Month Proclamation ceremony. As you can see, we're going virtual for the very first time, and things happen. This is our first run doing virtual, so you got a little snippet of Julian, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some more of him later on. But I'm very excited to be here today. As I said, this is our first run at doing virtual. I really miss being in the room with everybody because that gives me my energy and keeps me from getting nervous, but I'm going to try to roll with it anyway. I'm going to start off by giving you some history about Black History Month, and then we're going to move on to some of our other guests and performances that we have. So I wanted to share with you that in 1915, in response to the lack of information on the accomplishments of Black people available to the public, historian Carter G. Woodson co-founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. In 1926, the group declared the second week of February as Negro History Week to recognize the contributions of African Americans to U.S. history. Few people studied Black history, and it wasn't included in textbooks prior to the creation of Negro History Week. I know when I was in school, we only learned about MLK. This week was chosen because it includes the birthdays of both Frederick Douglass and former U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. Many schools and leaders began recognizing this week after its creation. The week-long event officially became Black History Month in 1976, when U.S. President Gerald Ford extended the recognition to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. Black History Month has been celebrated in the United States every February since. Today, Black History Month continues the discussion of Black people and their contributions through activities such as museum exhibits, film screenings, and by encouraging the study of achievements by African Americans year-round. The Black Employees Council works diligently each year to keep the celebration going here at Arlington County. The theme for Black History Month this year is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. The BEC typically makes an attempt to incorporate this theme, chosen annually by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, into our events. Joining us now is the chair of the Arlington County Board, Matt DeFerrante, with the reading of the proclamation. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Morel, and a big thank you to you as president, and also to Sonia Salam and Tasha Green, as well as Angela Easterbrook. Just a big thank you for helping to put this on. I'm happy to be here again. I do miss in person, and the start of the Black National Anthem is tempting that I hope afterwards many of us will find a version of it online and listen to it on this special day. So I will get right to the proclamation. I do want to think a little bit briefly about the past year. The theme is important, and we usually touch on this. But this year, perhaps for many, this is different from previous years. I want to talk very, very briefly about where Arlington has been. So much has happened in our country and in Arlington this year. It was a year of awakening for many on Black history, and a year of reckoning for both the country and Virginia, and also in some ways Arlington, as a year of pain and anger, and eventually some hope too. It was a year that brought home how much needs to be done to heal the country and move forward. Arlington had some soul searching, and I just want to speak the couple of events we all may know. In September of 2019, we passed an equity resolution, and that continues to frame the county board and my thinking on what we need to be doing on racial justice and racial equity. We've been analyzing and working on this, and we've made some progress. We had the sobering wake-up calls of Juneteenth last year, and I still remember so well the conversation or the event that you led, Morel, and others spoke at after a young Black girl's chalk sidewalk writing supporting Black Lives Matter was washed away. More recently, we were shocked again, and when a Black man was questioned after a neighbor called the police to report his alleged suspicious activity, which the neighbor described as taking photographs of an Arlington military installation. Those are hard moments, and those remind us that there's so much more work to be done. Later, we are very pleased that we now have Chief Race and Equity Officer, Deputy County Manager Samia Byrd, and we received a report at our last board meeting on the dialogues on racial equity, which is so critical. We made some other steps. They're steps. We're going to replace the logo, which was based on Robert E. Lee's home. We have a policy for renaming the names of parks, facilities, and streets that is to come. We have the police practices group, which I know is important. We have equity as a key component of our Housing Arlington initiative, and we have a restorative justice coordinator, Kamiko Leidy, who is spearheading our efforts there. Digital equity is also important, but there's so much left to do. I want to commit to you that me and my colleagues will continue this work. We are engaged and enrolled in it. And as we officially kick off Black History Month, in a time like no other, when our country is faced with so many challenges, we're humbled as a board and as a community by how much work lies ahead, and we are eager to get to that work. Just as one indication, this year, all 5 of us are here listening in today, thanks to Vice Chair Katie Crystal, Board Member Christian Dorsey, Board Member Libby Garvey, and Board Member Takis Karantonis. And with that, I know everyone is eager to hear Mr. Corey Henderson, so I am going to just briefly read a couple of the recitals, and then I'll pass it along to the next of us. Whereas Black History Month is observed in February of each year, whereas Black History Month seeks to highlight Black history and it is designed to recognize and pay tribute to the many contributions of Black Americans to the history, society, and culture of the United States of America. And whereas, as Meryl mentioned, our Black History Month has been celebrated each year since 1976. February has been designated Black History Month in our nation, and the President of the United States has proclaimed the month of February to be Black History Month. Whereas the theme for today, Black History Month 2021, is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity, in which the Black community's unwavering understanding of the value of family as an incomparable source of comfort, strength, and even survival is highlighted, and the wide-ranging diversity of Black family life is explored, from single to 2-parent households to nuclear, extended, and more recently, biracial families. Whereas throughout Black history, factors such as slavery, inequality, and poverty have put pressure on maintaining family ties, even when a better life often meant traveling far from home. Now, therefore, I, Matt DeFranti, Chair of the County Board in Arlington, Virginia, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Black History Month in Arlington County, and call upon all of our residents to observe this occasion by recognizing the contributions of Black Americans to our society in general and to Arlington County in particular. Thanks so much, and I believe it probably is back to you, Morel.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Very powerful words that I very much appreciate. Up next on our agenda, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote guest speaker. He will be familiar to some of you who participated in our racial healing series back in the fall. Dr. Corey Henderson is a doctor of public health with one aim: helping society heal from the influences of historical trauma. Dr. Henderson enjoys interacting with people and learning from their personal stories of triumph. He is truly a qualitative researcher and a student of philosophy. Over the past decade, he has sought to understand race-based trauma and its crippling effects on minority communities. He continues to seek solutions to help others overcome life's challenges at every level of their being: mind, body, and soul. I bring to you Dr. Corey Henderson. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you joining today. I'm going to start with a presentation that I took the time, I listened to the call, I listened to the need for a discussion that was deeper. And the discussion that I discovered was, what does it mean specifically for the impacts of COVID-19 on the community in 2020? And for me, it was a matter of really deep reflection to think about what was 2020. And as I think about 2020, I think about loss of friends. I think about those who I love and care for that are no longer with us. I think about relatives that we were not able to spend time with while they were in the hospital, and the mental health that they had to endure and the pain that they had to experience. But with all of that, you'll look at the screen and it says life is good. How could life be good in the midst of all that we are dealing with? How could life be good in the midst of all that we're dealing with? So today I'd like to talk a little bit about hope, a little bit about the cause and effect of what we experienced. So David Walker in the 1800s wrote an appeal. And in his appeal, he actually said that it was necessary for us to go back and ask the tyrants, what is it that we have done that deserves for our people to experience such levels of pain, such levels of trauma, that we must endure and carry more than the Egyptians, carry more than the Israelites? And you can read David Walker's appeal by just Googling it, and you'll discover that in the 1800s, David Walker wrote an appeal that was relevant to today. You would read it thinking that you were reading about today's news. But I'll say to you that David Walker's appeal, one part that he says, is that in the appeal, he says that he was in a promiscuous conversation with an older black man, and the older black man began to brag about how smart his son was in comparison to a white man. And he says that my son can put up books and understand the ability to lay books out in the shelf based on the knowledge of how the books were supposed to be. And then he goes to quote and ask the man, does that mean that he is equal to the man that he's comparing him to? And he says, well, my son is just as good as any white man. And then you pause for a moment, you have to ask yourself, let's go a little deeper. What does that truly mean? Is our measure of standard someone outside of ourselves? Does it mean that if we match up and we meet the grade of the student in the class that had the highest grade, and that grade was a C, that we are a great student? Does it mean that our measure is based on who someone else is? And he goes further to say that he would crawl through mud and mire to be at the foot of a learned man. For a black man to acquire an education in the United States of America would make a tyrant quake in his boots. I start this off today by talking about David Walker's appeal, because what you'll discover is that since Africans at one point, came to the United States of America, there's been a cause and effect. And we can't skip the cause and effect without understanding 2020 and before. So what is life? Life truly is cause and effect. If we're going to talk about life, it's not about what happens to you, but how you respond to it. Is that truly the case? I would say to you, yes, because life is good. And we're going to talk about that before I wrap up today. So let me tell you a quick story about this guy who goes to the doctors, and he goes to the eye doctor, the optometrist, and he says, I can't see, doc. And the doctor takes off his glasses and he hands them to the man and he says, try these. And the man puts the glasses on, said, this is terrible. I can't see. I just don't get it. I cannot see. And the doctor says to him, maybe you can't see because you're not trying hard enough. And the guy looks through the glasses again, even harder, squinting his eyes, and realizes that those are not his glasses. And he says to the optometrist, why would you give me these glasses? I told you I can't see. The optometrist says to him, well, they worked for me for the last 10 years, and they work just fine. Maybe the problem is that not only are you not trying hard enough, but you're not even giving the opportunity for what I'm offering you to work. The guy took the glasses off, threw them down, and walked out and never went back to the doctor. What I said to you beginning this conversation is that we must first seek to understand before we seek to be understood. Most of us, we try to prescribe things to people when they come to us with their concerns and their complaints, and we haven't even really understood what it is that we're prescribing for. And in this situation, for the African American community, Black History Month, for minorities and anyone of color that experiences the benefit of being connected to the African American community, how many of us have experienced someone telling us what we need to do, what our answers are for our problems, before they've taken the time to understand us. So today I want to talk a little bit about the effects of a pandemic, COVID-19. So there's been loss of life. And we don't want to have a number on the screen that seems as though that number is just a number, but 465,000 people as of yesterday have died from COVID-19. COVID-19 as a pandemic has affected not only the country, but if we break it down, the different races of people differently. Asians have had 14,019 deaths. That's 3% of all deaths. Their population is 5.9%. Blacks, 63,207 people have died. That's 14% of all deaths. We're only 13.4% of the nation. Indigenous people, 4,506 people have died. That's 1% of all deaths. And they're only 1.3% of the census population. The Latino community, 72,291 people have died. That is 16% of all deaths. And they are 18.5% of the population. The Pacific Islanders, 706 people have died. They are 0.2% of all deaths and 0.2% of the population. And the white community also has experienced loss. 241,440 people have died, and that's 51.9% of deaths. But the really strong number is that they are 76.3% of the population. So how is it that just about every other race of people have experienced loss at a greater number, which we would call disparity, than the white community? Well, here's a chart that kind of shows you, if you want to not look at the numbers, but just see how it kind of lays out. It is still a sad, daunting number that this number of people have died. But we still ask the question, how did we get to a place of disparity? Well, let's go. Here we are thinking about the idea of how many people are experiencing the effects of COVID-19. 27.1 million people have had or experienced COVID-19. 27.1 million people have had or experienced the effects of COVID-19. Well, what does that mean? Well, 27.1 million people may have fatigue, shortness of breath, cough, joint pain, chest pain, difficulty with thinking and concentration, what we call brain fog, depression, muscle pain, headache, intermittent fever, fast beating or pounding hearts, also known as heart palpitations. And more serious but less common effects are cardiovascular disease, respiratory illnesses, renal issues, dermatologic issues with hair loss and rashes, neurological issues, smell and taste, sleep issues, difficulty with concentration, memory problems, and psychiatric issues, to name a few. Now, what about the emotional and behavioral changes? Well, we've had symptoms related to those of concentration, of course. We've had boredom, of course, irritability, restlessness, nervousness, a sense of loneliness, and uneasiness. And let's not forget about the worries. Well, why am I talking about all of that? Because all of that leads to some economic impact on the community. And honestly, the economic impact is leading to many of the mental health issues and the issues in the home. You'll see here on this chart that unemployment by race and ethnicity is, again, off the charts in the Black community. And we're celebrating Black History Month, and I'm saying to you, life is good, and we're looking at a daunting statistic today. Well, I'm going somewhere with this, so bear with me. Look at the streets. Look at Las Vegas. Everybody is dealing with some level of pain, some level of loss. I don't care what your race is, but the biggest issue I wanted to point out today is this is the effect of COVID-19. But isn't COVID-19 a pandemic? What other pandemics have we experienced that really are the root cause of why COVID-19 is taking such a daunting effect on our community? Well, I say the cause is another pandemic called racism. Racism is a pandemic in itself, just like COVID-19. But racism is a pandemic that's been around since before we came to the United States of America and has really plagued in the mindsets and the fabric of the country. So let's talk about the physical health, because what you're going to see here is the symptoms of racism actually line directly up with the symptoms of the effects of COVID-19 on our community. Take, for instance, racism is associated with higher rates of stress. We know that from stress, you get high blood pressure. With high blood pressure, you experience certain levels of inflammation. Inflammation leads to you having heart issues, having inability to breathe. And when a COVID-19 comes into your community, you're already depleted. So now we're experiencing the effects of COVID-19 from the cause of racism. What about healthcare? We also have structural racism in the medical care facilities, medical care institutions, leading to poor health. One doctor and several doctors actually believe that Black people's skin is thicker than that of white people's skin. We know that's not true. But once the message got out there, it's hard to pull it back. So we talked today about the impacts of racism. A 2015 study found that children that had issues with their appendix actually received less medication for their pain because people felt as though if you are African American, you can handle pain better. That goes all the way back to 1827 when a planter in the South that said Blacks did not need medication to actually resolve their dysentery and other health issues because they were used to living down South. What happened during the Civil War? More African American soldiers died because they were not given the medication they needed because someone once said, oh, they don't need it. What are we talking about? What are we sharing here? We're sharing that stress, emotional health, emotional distress, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and suicidal thoughts are all harmful and related to racism. And we talk about the pandemic of COVID-19. What about the pandemic of racism? What about the thing that is plaguing the world? What about the fact that there are more Africans, more dark-skinned people, more people of color in the world than there are of what we would consider white people by the design of the words? But the fact that we have racism, our people have been taught to hate each other, argue with each other, stress over each other, disagree with each other, and never come to a point to understand that we have power in collectivity. I can't breathe either. I know for many of you, you can't breathe because we've seen so much pain. But again, COVID-19 is just another symptom of a bigger problem. So as the gentleman said earlier, we have experienced last year a reckoning where when you have many people that are unemployed, people that can't eat, people that can't provide for their families, they get in the streets because they're tired of the deaths of Black and brown people. They're tired of the people being mistreated. This is just a list of people that have died at the hands of police officers last year that were unarmed or treated unfairly and died in 2020. We only hear about a few cases on the news, but this is the list of African Americans and brown people and people of color that have died at the hands of police. And we say right now that we love our police officers, but we also recognize that there are deep-rooted issues in the blue. There are deep-rooted issues in every organization. So I don't want to pick apart or pick out those of police officers who are wrong or who may believe in this racist society, but we want to focus on the officers who can do right by encouraging them that you want us to start snitching, you should start snitching too. Now, for people of color, all the right choices don't equal all the right outcomes. So we can do the right things. For Black families and other families of color, studying and working hard is not associated with the same levels of wealth amassed among whites. Black families whose heads graduated from college have about 33% less wealth than white families whose heads dropped out of high school. Hear me again. Whites who dropped out of high school have more wealth than African Americans who have college degrees. It's a daunting statistic. In 2011, the racial wealth gap exceeded $100,000. The median Black family has about $7,113,000 in wealth, while the median white family has $111,740 in wealth. What am I talking about wealth? Wealth is take all that you think you own, subtract what you owe from what you actually have, and that's what you're left with. Your retirement savings, your savings, the house, the nice car, the nice clothes, all these things that you have, if they aren't equitable in a sense of you being able to sell them tomorrow, what you actually owe subtracted leaves your wealth. So here are the economic impacts that affect us when we virtually have no wealth to draw upon in times of financial crisis. Who do you call? Well, you call the cousin who has a good job. You call the cousin who has money in the bank. And the cousin who has money in the bank is getting calls from 3 family members and friends. They start to feel overwhelmed because they want to help everybody. So 2 people graduate school with the same degree, the same opportunity, have less opportunity of building wealth because they feel indebted and required to help their family and friends because the society around them has less equitable opportunity to build wealth. Here we go again. Education is not the great equalizer. Education, when it comes to race and wealth, is not the great equalizer. Am I saying we shouldn't get an education? No. So please don't go say, Dr. Henderson said, I don't need an education. What I'm saying to you is, how do we begin to reestablish ourselves as a society when we don't have equity in our ability to build wealth? If we're already starting behind the starting line, how do we go forward if we trying to build something that we never had an opportunity to build with in the beginning? We need to have the opportunity to build houses and actually have the opportunity for our children to go to school and not have to worry about the massive amount of debt that they are acquiring. Because then we treat each other bad based on the fact that, oh, there's a lot of poverty, a lot of struggle, when actually we all are experiencing the same issue. Because working hard, as we've been told, you got to work harder. You got to put in overtime. You got to work harder. You got to work harder. We kill ourselves trying to work harder to make money because we believe that working harder will increase our wealth. No, you get a few extra dollars in your pocket, but wealth is something completely different. What about the idea of family income? Family income is not the great equalizer. I don't care if you make 6 figures or not. Your wealth is different than your family income. Your wealth is different than your family income. Here's a great example. African-American boys were followed, and in following these African-American boys, what they discovered is that those who grow up in houses with wealth, those who grew up in middle income or middle class families, those who grew up in families with upper middle income dollars. As you'll see on the screen, the white is the white individuals are yellow or gold or orange, depending on how your screen looks. And the blue are African-American boys. The majority of them do not retain the wealth that their parents had. The majority of them do not retain the wealth that their parents had. So how do we teach and prepare our children and our youth to be able to understand what it means that we're trying to build wealth? Yes, I want to buy you that, but I'm trying to prepare you for the bigger future to come. So here I want to share with you a comment about what does it mean to be urban. To be urban means that many of us have flocked to cities because in the counties and the communities, we did not have an opportunity to be seen or shared or heard or even experience the benefit of living in a community where others respected us. That would be rural America. So we found ourselves again in a position where we run back to happiness. What does it mean to be happy? Well, happiness depends on ourselves. Well, when we depend on ourselves, we go back to the Aristotle idea that we acquire things and we acquire virtue, and we go back to wanting to be in a position where others respect us. Happiness depends on ourselves. Well, Augustine of Hippo, he actually comes back and says later, well, happiness is based on 2 conditions. Epictetus, who says further that all external events are beyond our control. So how can life be good if everything that's happening around us is outside of our control? Well, the only way that life can be good is that we must handle the things happening to us calmly and dispassionately. We must understand that we do have a role of action, but we must also understand that how we respond, we teach those behaviors. So how is happiness based on 2 conditions based on Augustine of Hippo? Augustine of Hippo says that you must have two conditions to be happy. The first one is you must acquire something that you never worry about losing. Because when you worry about losing it, that's what causes the stress. Oh, I got to work harder to pay this Lexus payment. I got to work even harder to pay for this big house. I got to work even harder because I want to acquire all these things. And nothing's wrong with that. The question is, where is happiness in that? Well, the only way you can be happy is to understand yourself and to truly be okay with who you are and not to chase all the external things. And that, unless you throw away your own relationship with yourself and your God, then you can truly be happy. I'm going to tell you a quick story before I get out of here, because I promised to be between 20 and 25 minutes. I'm at 21, and then I'm going to close out. The story goes like this. A husband and wife are sitting in their living room. They're reading in their book. As they're reading in their book, they look out the window and they realize that there are children's clothes next door hanging on a clothesline. As they look at the children's clothes hanging on a clothesline, the woman turns and says to her husband, "Oh, that is terrible. Those kids' clothes are dirty. Why would you hang up kids' clothes that are dirty?" And the husband says, "Oh, that is really bad. We should go meet them. They're obviously our new neighbors and they have children." And the woman says, "No, I don't want to meet them. Why do I want to meet them? She doesn't even take good care of her kids." Well, they talk about this lady back and forth for about a good 2 or 3 weeks. And after talking about her for a good 2 or 3 weeks, one morning, the husband slept in a little late and he woke up and came downstairs. And what he says, "Oh my gracious, the lady cleaned her clothes. She cleaned the kids' clothes. I can't believe it. We should really go meet her now." And he looked around the house and he said, "Babe, the house is beautiful. It's immaculate." "Oh, and you clean the windows too?" She said, "Yeah, I got up early this morning and cleaned the windows." And what they discovered was that the kids' clothes were never dirty. Their windows were. Are we looking from a lens that we're not recognizing that life is good because our lens is dirty? So what do I mean by all the bleakness I presented to you and how I can say, entitle this, "Life is Good"? Well, I was contemplating a lyric that Drake dropped in the song "Life is Good" with Future. He says, "Say my days are numbered, but I keep waking up." To me, this is what makes life good, the drama, the juxtaposition of all the things that seem to overwhelm us, but we keep waking up. We keep choosing to overcome the despair. We keep choosing to fight the proclamation that our days are numbered. Then I thought about the celebratory pronouncement of Future when he said, "It's cool, man, got my red bottoms on, life is good." African Americans have prided themselves on not looking like what they're going through. This artist reminds us to celebrate life and be okay with whatever decision we make, to stop allowing the trauma to consume us and find ways to turn the bleak into the sleek. I find that statement, "Life is Good," to be an existential question. Well, what is an existential question? Existential is a Latin term combined exter into what means emerge and stand out, to appear, to exist. The two verbs that make these words are ex and sistere, which means to cause to stand. So in other words, what exists is from what emerges and stands forth with actuality. This means that the emerging and becoming is not by its own power, but a power derived from a situation being caused to stand forth. What exists stands forth in a response to a call. The call comes from the existential question: how do I live a good life? Well, the power to live towards such a question arises from the question itself. This power arises within the person as the question is taken in and entertained attentively. For the power lies in the tension between who you are, what you want to be, and who you were told you were at a given point. And you must remember, importantly, that you can become anything you choose to become. The connection between the future and the question and the strength of becoming. So life is good because we are alive. We are alive because we are growing and becoming based on the active response to possibilities which stand before us. These questions have to be lived toward in such a way that in time, the self which one has to become is the answer. So some may ask, why us? The answer lives in you. How you answer the question determines your faith and your ability to overcome. There are cases where a fact cannot come at all unless a preliminary faith exists in its coming. We don't simply believe in the future, we believe the future into existence. We're always believing ahead of the evidence. I believe the future in. It is coming because I believe it to be. Most will ask how long. Well, finally, how long means that I want to ask the question, how long do I have to wear this mask? How long do I have to social distance? How long does it have to be like this? Well, the person asking a how long question is really saying that they're excited about the future. They're saying that they're ready to get out of the mask to show their beautiful smile. They're saying that they want to breathe freely. They can imagine a future where people love one another beyond their differences. This question is neither a request for information nor a rhetorical outpouring of futile feeling or useless passion. Rather, a life which is lived in the power, even on such a specific question as this, remains open to your future. So I say life is good. I say life is good because you are being invited to participate in this party by giving an answer. You are invited to the party. You're invited in the process. You got to believe it. You have to invite your family, your friends, everyone to live and live fully, to be a part of the future they want to see. So life is good, as Drake says in his song with Future. Say my days are numbered, but I keep waking up. I keep waking up. Life is good, as Future says. It's cool, man. I got my red bottoms on. I don't have my red bottoms on today, but I'm planning to have them on next week because life is good. So you may be like Drake saying you're living to overcome the haters. Or you may be like Future saying that who you are, you're cool with it. And you're able to make the best of your trials. But yes, I say life is good. And despite all that we're going through, I pray that you have a prosperous year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson, for that wonderful keynote address. We appreciate having you back, and you've become a popular person here because of the Racial Healing Series, and I'm sure you'll get more positive feedback behind this. Up next on our agenda, I have some special presentations to make. Many of you will remember that the highlight of last year's Black History Month Proclamation 2020 was the Black Excellence Awards. And while we will not do those every year, they will be every couple of years. As the president, I reserve the right to be able to give out recognition when I want to. So I'm taking that license because I'd like to recognize two standouts from the year of 2020. I'm sure as many of you may have noticed, Black women were very visible and powerful and impactful in 2020. When you think about Stacey Abrams and Tasha Brown, and of course our new Vice President, Ms. Kamala Harris. But we have some very strong and impactful Black women here at Arlington County also. And I could not let this ceremony go by without recognizing two people who stood out to me and two people who I definitely idolize and look up to. So I have two awards to give out this year. My first honoree is a veteran firefighter in Arlington County, Virginia, who is breaking barriers as she rises through the ranks. Tiffany Wesley is the first African-American woman named Deputy Fire Chief in all of Northern Virginia. She has been with Arlington County Fire Department for 26 years and has worked in just about every capacity there is, including on the bomb squad. So we can technically say for sure she is the bomb. 2 years ago, she became the first African-American woman battalion chief in Northern Virginia. She is a BEC member and a member of our anti-racism subcommittee. Ms. Wesley is quoted as saying women can do anything they want to do. And while I agree with her, I must say there is only one Tiffany Wesley, and she is a true role model. So I'm not sure if she's on, but I have something for her. I hope everyone can see it. And let me see, there we go. That looks better to me. So this reads, the Black Employees Council President's Award, Certificate of Achievement for Tiffany Wesley in recognition of breaking barriers as the first Black female deputy fire chief in Arlington and Northern Virginia. So I know I can't hear you, but please give her some love and some applause because she is amazing. And Tiffany, I will make sure this makes it into your hands. All right. My second honoree in July was appointed by County Manager Mark Schwartz as the Chief Race and Equity Officer for Arlington County. Ms. Samia Byrd is leading the county's work to advance racial equity, diversity, and inclusion, both internal and external to the organization. This includes guiding and facilitating the development and implementation of important policies and practices through an equity lens. She is also guiding the development of a racial equity tool. Once developed, that tool will be used in guiding policy, practice, program, and budget decisions, and offer new strategies for achieving racial equity outcomes in Arlington. Ms. Byrd is also the executive sponsor for the BEC, and we are all proud and happy to have her expertise and her influence as our guiding light. And I can personally say I enjoy working with her, and I happily will present this to her when I will get it to you, Samia. And this reads, the Black Employees Council President's Award, Certificate of Leadership, is awarded to Samia Byrd in recognition of your new role as Chief Race and Equity Officer. So we have two Black women that are doing big things here at Arlington County, and I am proud to know and look up to both of them. And I can see Samia is very surprised. And actually, she is up next on our agenda with closing remarks. So I'll hand it off to our 2021 Leadership Award winner, Ms. Samia Byrd.
Thank you so much. I am actually, yes, very surprised and a little in shock, but I really, really appreciate that. And thank you so much, Morel. I just want to close out with some remarks by talking a little bit about the Black family and how befitting that the theme for Martin Luther King Jr. Day this year is the beloved community. And then for Black History Month, it's the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. At a time when there's so much unrest, a need for a sense of belonging, acceptance, acknowledgement, and validation of Black people and life. The themes that carry us are community and family, and specifically the Black family. When I looked up family in Merriam-Webster, I got a bunch of technical kind of definitions, like the basic unit in society traditionally consisting of two parents rearing their children, any of various social units differing from but regarded as equivalent to the traditional family, like a single parent family, a group of households living under one roof and usually under one head household, group of persons of common ancestry or a clan, group of people or people regarded as deriving from a common stock, a group of people united by certain convictions or a common affiliation, fellowship, which is a word that I really like. Then if you Google the Black family, there is an entirety of study and theory, articles and reports on Black and African-American family structures, complete with a bunch of statistics and details ranging from African-American nuclear families, extended families, augmented families, non-household families, interracial marriages, talking about the father representation, mother representation, economic theories, social theories around traditional African influences, the decline of the Black family structure, in particular post-1960s and the welfare state, decline of Black marriages, rise of divorce rates, Black male incarceration and mortality, poverty, educational performance, teen pregnancy, and so much more. The Black family as being extinct, being under siege. The Black family, how it's represented, how it is identified and portrayed, and implications for diversity has been researched and studied. With everything going on and life still happening, I personally have been in a space where what defines family resonates even more when we talk about life, death, and the spaces in between. Family for me really is who and how I identify who I am, what I believe. It's my foundation, my roots, my sense of belonging, and my being. My family stands on pillars of strong matriarchs and patriarchs, characteristics of strength and faith, courage that is my lineage, my inheritance of legacy. When I think about the Black family, I think less about the definitions from Merriam-Webster and the socioeconomic theories and studies of us, and more about community, reliance, and resilience of connections and networks of sisterhood and brotherhood that are necessary to our survival. Family in its vastness and the Black family is everything. My sister said recently that what she loves about our family is that there are no divisions among us. Family is family, whether you were born in, married in, adopted in, or just blended in. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And this speaks to the representation, identity, and diversity of the Black family. This is what I have known to be true my entire life, and it matters not how you came to be or how you present, what you present. You are accepted and you are welcome into our family, the Black family. And this is the essence of the Black family that we want to lift up and celebrate, especially this month. And with the theories and statistics, the quote norms that society documents, which, as we know, especially after listening to Dr. Henderson, are not based on familiar structure or definition of the Black family from the cultural sense, but really systemic inequities that have pervaded those structures. Culturally, the Black family is one of tolerance, nurturing, and support. When we think family, we think lineage, we think roots, we think expansive, we think home, we think spirit, we think soul, we think core and glue. That thing, that person, the ties that bind us all together, connects us and unifies us. And we think more deeply about being in relationship with one another. So this year, Black History Month seems so urgent for some. The imperative to really highlight and share facts and figures, cultural engagement and involvement. Yes, it should be elevated and lifted up this month, but not just this month or today, but every day, all year long. And the takeaway from this year's theme is really to learn and apply the Black family in a cultural sense of representation, identity, and diversity to our overall community. Sharing our families, the richness of the diversity of our community, and ensuring it is represented in the facts and figures and pages of the history books and communicated in our everyday lives to our colleagues, our peers, and others. Highlighting for the rest of the world the unknowns and the personal history makers is a great way for us to normalize the Black experience in America and not just be the exception. As we think about this year, Black History Month, expand your understanding and relationship with the Black people you're connected to every day in your personal and professional life. Understand how we live every day, the things we do, our existence, and how we continue to support and nurture people and places. Create and build those relationships. So much of our histories is in our families. Black people, learn your stories and tell them, share them, who you are, how you came to be, your family. This is the richness that will help us all collectively create community. Let's make our lived experiences, our history, the norm, not the exception. Celebrate Black families, celebrate Black history. It is our collective history, as we are all Black history. Thank you. Back to you, Morel.
Morel, you're muted.
And let me try that again. Thank you, Samia, for those thought-provoking words. Now that I'm not muted, I want to do acknowledgements. I want to thank all who assisted with or supported today's event in no particular order. The entire BEC, Samia Byrd, Dr. Corey Henderson, Julian Coles, my VP, Andre Talley, my secretary, Jamie Adams, my events coordinator, Sonia Salam, our engineer, Tasha Green, Angela Easterwood, Joanna Coles, Pat Rivers, Cheryl Tibbs, Robert Petros, Miranda Fields Norfleet, Warren Gant, Edric Doc Upshur, Shauna Gary, Giselle Johnson, Sandra McNeil. That's our BEC leadership team. I want to thank Karen Talley, Mark Schwartz, Tiffany Langnoon, Kurt Larrick, Joseph Kang, Catherine Barbie, Jason Drake, Lynn Porphyry, Stephanie Washington, Francesca Lucia, Rob Farr, David Wood, and all of our sister ERGs. LED and the teleworkers group, which we left out of the program by mistake. Next Gen, Veterans, WOW, Outstanding, Alianza, and AHA. I feel like I'm at the Oscars. Please join WOW as they celebrate Women's History Month in March. And join the BEC for our other events throughout the month of February. We're sticking to every Wednesday. For the most part, we have our Black History Month program that's typically our DHS program here, but of course it's virtual. There's a link to it on the back of the program, but that will be next Wednesday from 1 to 2:30. We have a financial equity panel on February 18th. You can register through the Learning Center Search Retirement, and that's going to be at from 12 to 1. We have our what is usually our trades program on the last Wednesday of the month. It will also be virtual and will include a soul food cooking demo and what we call Black Table Talk. That will be on the 24th from 11 to 12:30. Also want to make you aware that we are doing a homeless winter essentials drive in honor of the legacy of Martin Luther King. We have collection bins in the lobbies of Bosman, Sequoia One, at the Trade Center, and the water treatment facility. We are collecting blankets, winter coats, hats, gloves, hand sanitizers, scarves, masks, hand warmers, and gift cards to distribute to the homeless sometime in March. Please find it in your heart to support brothers and sisters who may need some extra help, especially during this time of COVID. All right. Up next, we will have a closing performance, and hopefully it will work, by Sweet Time Productions and independent artist Julian Coles. And the song is called You've Got the Right, and it's an original composition. Take it away, Julian.
Church with this? Can we go to church with this? See, I grew up in the drama camps. When I was just a little boy, my mama said this to say something. Maybe you can be anything you want. All this you gotta believe. Now many years around the world, I found what mama told me was true. I've got a passion deep inside of me, yeah, and I wanna share that with you. If you got the right. Like this, you got the right. All the Now we all have a purpose, each and every one, a sacred duty to do. We are beholden to our fellow man. Your design writes us for you. Follow your dreams, fulfill your destiny, and use your talents for good. I'm losing my just in this little truth. was more than capable. Do all you have to do. Just don't do it. Hold
Thank you, Julian and Joanna, for that wonderful performance. I want to thank everyone that logged in today and took a piece of your day to join us for this proclamation ceremony. I hope you enjoyed the ceremony itself as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Again, our next program will be next Wednesday, and we will have lessons learned from this and be able to put a little more polish on it. I'm going to work on learning to unmute. And I also wanted to say I understood that some of you did not see Dr. Henderson's presentation. We will post it on Commons and share it as much as we can so that you can have that to look at. Other than that, again, thank you. Have a great day and continue to celebrate one another. God bless.